And so that's been my Sekiro experience for the past couple of days. Outside of that, I finished the show I was rewatching that I mentioned last week. Now and then, here and there, it's pretty good. I remembered more of it than I thought I did. Um, and lots of things about it are good. I still highly recommend it. But there is one thing I wanted to talk about
Yeah.
with it. It is a spoiler, so I want to throw out some spoiler stuff here. But I want to know kind of what your feelings on this is, and it's kind of a little bit heavy, if that's all right.
Okay.
So the show basically, right? I said it's it's like a post-apocalypse thing, isekai, whatever. And the main character is put in a situation where it's supposed to emulate like warlords and child soldier situations that were happening in Rwanda at the time the show was made, right? Because
Yes.
it was inspired by the Rwandan Civil War.
Yeah, you mentioned that last episode.
Yeah. And so this includes not just child soldiers, but obviously, well, not obviously, but those warlords also would take female prisoners and use them to create new troops, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so there's a character in this show that is like a young girl, I think she's like 14 or something, that is in this situation basically, and she gets pregnant, and that's like a plot point, right? That happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is towards the end of the series, she's like struggling with this idea of like, what do I do about this baby kind of thing, and she's like contemplating killing herself or like horrible DIY abortions, like she tries to
Mm-hmm.
like a rock. But the series kind of does this thing where like the main character and like the mother figure character are like, nah, don't abort the baby because the baby's not evil just because
Mm-hmm.
the dad is evil, just
Mm-hmm.
because he was a product of rape, right? So I'm kind of wondering, like, I don't know, like I want to know like how you feel about that in a sense, because I know that tons of people have watched the show. I've seen some people talking about it online that have watched it and really don't like that it goes that direction and that it ruined the show for them because it's kind of like bad politics. And I do kind of like understand it, I guess, but I don't think that it's that bad. It's not amazing. It
Yeah.
could there's a bit more nuance that should be handled there, but I don't think that it's like entirely wrong. But I'm wondering what your read on it is. So
So, full disclosure, haven't seen the show, so I don't,
right,
I
and I
can't
will
say.
say that the message that it's going for with the whole thing is that the show's like main messaging at the end is that like a person should try and do everything they can to make the best of a bad situation, and that it also there's like this kind of underlying theme of in this series of like people expressing power over other people by their ability to kill them. Like that's like it's like the main villain is in control, and he is in control of when and how his soldiers die,
So
and every other character is also threatens death for other people to control them. So that also kind of ties into
yeah,
this
so
as well.
thematically speaking, if you had a character just willingly abort the child, it kind of goes against what you've been pushing as being bad, because you could read into the abortion as being the exact same thing.
Right.
If in that case, I don't personally agree with that mentality of saying, how old is this character when she's pregnant?
She's really young, but they don't say how old she is. I think she's implied to be about the same age as the main character, who I think is like 15.
Okay, that's really okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is an issue of a conflict of, not, maybe, I don't even know if it's a conflict of interest, but a conflict of what would be the logically sound thing to do, might, according to me personally,
Right. Well, yeah. No, I get you.
goes against the thematic the themes that the show is having. So I could understand how people feel like that ruins the show because it goes into like a bad politics situation. but that's probably like as an author, if you're, that's probably something that he probably had to think about a lot when he decided to write. I assume it's a dude. Um, when he
Yeah,
when
it's
he when he
yeah, Akitaro Daiichi.
when they decided to write the show or write the book, because it's a light novel, right? Originally,
No,
original.
it is an original anime original.
Oh, okay. Well, when they decided to write that as a story, it's probably something they had to think about. It's like it depend. I mean, depend. I guess that depends on the person's politics. Anyway, I don't know if I can't say if it would ruin the show for me, but I can say that does leave a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, and that's actually relevant to something I had during my week with an
Oh,
anime that I finished, because there are light themes of something that come up, not
yeah.
around abortion, and I can't say that it's like a heavy focus on the show, but it does lean a little too much into a mentality that I don't agree with politically.
Now I can say that in this instance the show doesn't outright say abortion bad. Like that's not
Mhm,
like what it's saying. It's more like consider not, I guess, is
mhm.
the position that it takes. And it's just
Like,
like yeah, like it's just a little honestly the thing that leaves a little bit more of a bad taste in my mouth in this instance is that there's another character who is a soldier at the that wasn't that like a middle. I think he's like a supposed to be in his 20s, right?
mhm,
Um, and so there's a couple of scenes where like they never actually show anything like explicit as far as like the sexual assault or whatever. It's all like implied,
mhm,
basically. And so is usually what it is it'll be the girl is ordered into another character's room, and so there's three scenes
mhm,
where this happens. The first one you don't see anything, you just see the guy in the door frame and that's it. The
mhm,
second one, the dude is like a character you saw earlier who was like a guard that was outside her cell who was like trying to be nice. Like it was before anything happened and he was like trying to like comfort her or be nice and try to, he's clearly
mhm,
like a dude who was forced to be a soldier who was kind of like not liking his job and is trying to be whatever. And then she gets
mhm,
ordered to his room and he's like trying to be amicable and like talk to her and stuff. But it cuts away and you don't actually know what happens in that scenario. And then the
mhm,
third time is she gets orders like this guy who's like, I'm just here doing my job, kind of like meathead, whatever. And then that's
mhm,
when she escapes because she kills him and then she leaves, right?
mhm,
Um so the second guy ends up being like a recurring character who shows up later, and it's a thing where he's put in this kind of weird light where Sarah, the girl, she's like not having it. She doesn't like him. She's like, please stay away from me, kind of thing, right? But
mhm,
he's kind of just like trying to be like, hey, like he like basically he saves her life at one point. He warns her that the village is going to be attacked so she can escape or whatever. And then at the end of the series, he like rescues a child and then dies. Or that's what happens.
mhm,
So it's interesting, or it's interesting in the sense that like you had this character who is a like potential rapist. You don't actually know if he is, but
mhm,
he's not like he's like partially absolved by being kind of a good person outside of that. And this is complicated in the sense where it's like everyone in this show is the thing I actually like about the show is that people that do bad things in the show, even if they have like a what you could consider to be a good reason, are not like said that that they're not absolved. Just
mhm,
some of the child soldiers that get brainwashed are not said that they're completely innocent because they're still complicit in some of these actions. There's a whole conflict that one of the characters has where he's like going through committing war crimes because it's the only way he can get home. There's another character that's like in his squad that keeps calling him out for it every time it happens. And there's a huge conflict within the show of being like these characters that are kind of being manipulated and forced into doing something bad. That doesn't mean that the things that they're doing that are bad get to go away. Um, and so that's something that I think is kind of interesting in this, but I don't know if I agree with how they handled that guy's character in that way too, because I feel like I don't know. He was kind of not there very much. And so it's just like the way that it was kind of resolved for his character, well, he still dies, and he dies doing something noble. It's still like I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's like
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of like get too into it without like getting really political because you don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to just like here are my thoughts on the Rwandan genocide. Like
Well,
just get
right. Yeah.
just
Because I mean, yeah, because it's like the only character in the entire show that's given as like a full on evil is the warlord guy.
mhm.
Because he's the one that is kind of instigating everything and doing whatever, and everyone else is kind of like given this weird gray area of people that are like manipulated into doing bad things, and they all have different reactions to that like situation, and it's all kind of part of the tragedy of the show, basically.
Yeah, well, it sounds interesting, and that's here
No,
and there. Oh wait, it's he.
I'll just
Uh
say it. I'm not gonna let you
oh,
guess because it take forever. The show is called Now and Then, Here and There, and it's
there,
I
there.
do think it's very good and people should still watch it. I think that was an interesting point of discussion about it basically.
No, yeah, I like that. I appreciate that. That's interesting because there's a point where it's like, what at what point does a narrative go so against your personal ideals that that it kind of ruins the narrative for you? Like,
Yeah,
where
well,
does
that's
that
like
drop?
Darling in the Franks kind of goes there. I didn't
That
actually get to the point where this happens in Darling in the Franks, but there's some kind of not great
there,
politics at the end that I don't think are handled with any sort of
there's some good
subtlety.
old bury your gays in there. Love it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
love that trope. It's a good
Gotta
trope.
only the gay character gets to die.
Here,
Everyone
Michelle,
else lives.
here,
Everyone,
everybody.
even the ones that die and then get resurrected, they get resurrected, but only the gay girl gets to die.
Of course, she has to. Otherwise,
That's good.
that's the only noble ending for a gay is to
It's
die.
true.
Mm.
And so that maybe just maybe that if, someone else will replace her that can have a baby
Hmm.
and save Japanese birthright.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Anyway, that's
What else
pretty
did
much
you do this
what
week?